What happens when a family tries to send their mother to a nursing home against her wishes? She turns the tables in a way no one could have seen coming. What she did next stunned everyone. Virginia Masters had never been one to shy away from a challenge. At 74, she still kept her garden in perfect rows, organized book drives for the local library, and baked from scratch every Sunday. Her home, a cheerful two-story on a quiet tree-lined street, was filled with memories. Her children's laughter, birthday banners long faded, the echo of stories told at bedtime. But lately, those memories had been interrupted by uncomfortable silences and hushed conversations. It began on a humid Saturday morning in July. Her daughter Ruth arrived first, bustling through the front door with a bag of pastries. Virginia set the kettle on, welcoming the distraction from a crossword puzzle she'd been working. Soon after, her son Phil followed, looking uncharacteristically serious. The air felt charged, the way it did before a summer storm. They sat around the kitchen table, sunlight glinting off the old blue formica. Virginia poured coffee, her hand steady despite the anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. Ruth was the first to speak. "Mom, we've been talking, Phil and I. We're worried about you living here alone. The house is too much for you. You've been forgetful, like last month, when you left the oven on. We think it's time to consider options." Phil nodded, his gaze a mixture of concern and discomfort. "It's not safe, Mom. The stairs, the garden, the shoveling in winter. You shouldn't have to do it all yourself. We could help you look at some nice places, retirement communities, assisted living. You'd have company. Activities." Virginia set down her cup with a quiet clink. "You want me to move out of my own home?" she asked, her voice low and calm, more bewildered than angry. Ruth reached across the table. "Mom, we love you. We're just worried. You deserve to be somewhere you're looked after." The rest of the conversation tumbled out in half-arguments and reassurances. Phil brought up the cost of upkeep, the risks of being alone, the convenience of having help just down the hall. Ruth suggested tours, brochures, even a friend's mother who loved her new place. Virginia listened, her face composed, but inside her thoughts raced. She looked at the walls her children had once scribbled on, the window seat where she'd soothed their scraped knees, the backyard swing set now overtaken by ivy. After 2 hours and 3 cups of coffee, the matter was left to think about. Phil left for a meeting, Ruth promised to send brochures, and Virginia walked them to the door, hugging them tightly as if they were children again. The house felt oddly silent after they left. Virginia wandered room to room, trailing her fingers along the worn banister, the family portraits, the framed cross-stitch her late husband had hung in the hall. She stared at the closed doors of Ruth and Phil's old bedrooms, one still painted blush pink, the other a fading blue, both frozen in time. That afternoon, Virginia's friend Marjorie stopped by, dropping off a tin of cookies. Over tea in the sunroom, Virginia confessed the morning's events. Marjorie squeezed her hand. "Don't let them rush you, Ginny. You know your own mind." Later, Virginia tidied the kitchen, watered the garden, and sat on the back porch watching the neighborhood children race their bikes. A part of her ached with the knowledge that her independence was being questioned, her life slowly being wrestled out of her hands. As twilight fell, she went inside and opened her journal, writing in her careful hand. "Today they told me it's time to leave. But this house is more than wood and bricks. It's my history, my soul. I won't let it go so easily." Virginia spent the evening fixing herself a simple supper, reading the newspaper, and, for the first time in months, locking every door and window with a sense of quiet defiance. In her heart, something had shifted, a resolve taking root, even as uncertainty loomed. Virginia woke the next morning with a new sense of determination. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, bathing the hallway in gold. She stretched, got dressed, and brewed her coffee, strong, black, just the way she liked it. As she sipped, her gaze wandered to the corkboard above her desk. It was covered with notes, reminders to call Marjorie, shopping lists, phone numbers, and a yellowing photo of Ruth and Phil as children on their first day of school. The phone rang mid-breakfast. It was Ruth, checking in with the bright, practiced cheer of someone hoping for good news. "Hi, Mom. Just wanted to let you know, I emailed you the brochures. Some of these places look wonderful. They even have painting classes and a pool." Virginia thanked her, making vague promises to look things over. After the call, She opened her laptop and glanced at the emails. Photographs of cheerful senior centers flashed on the screen. Men playing cards, women doing yoga, happy faces at communal tables. But the thought of leaving her own kitchen for an institutional dining hall made her stomach twist. She shut the laptop and rose, restless. She spent the morning tending her garden, deadheading roses and watering her tomatoes. The earth, rich and familiar, grounded her. Neighbors passed by, Mrs. Lee from 2 doors down, walking her dog, and Mr. Jennings, out for a jog. They exchanged warm greetings, and Mrs. Lee asked, "Will you be coming to the neighborhood picnic this year?" Virginia promised she wouldn't miss it, her heart swelling at the idea that she still belonged. Inside, she washed up and walked room to room, inspecting each corner with new eyes. The upstairs bedrooms, Ruth's with her childhood dollhouse, Phil's with his old baseball posters, sat mostly unused, collecting dust and nostalgia. Downstairs, she polished the silver, sorted laundry, and made a batch of blueberry muffins for Marjorie. After lunch, Virginia pulled out a box of family photos, sorting through decades of birthdays, holidays, graduations. She set a few aside for framing, others to send in letters. She wrote a long note to her cousin June in Vermont, updating her on the latest family drama, and included snapshots of the house, her garden, and her most recent canning project. That afternoon, Marjorie called with an invitation to bingo night at the church hall. Virginia hesitated. She hadn't gone in months, but tonight, the idea of being out among friends sounded like a tonic. She dusted off her good shoes and went. The church hall was bustling, filled with laughter and old friends. Marjorie saved her a seat, and together they played cards, swapped stories, and cheered when Virginia won a jar of homemade jam. Walking home beneath the streetlights, Virginia felt both tired and renewed. She realized she was still woven into the fabric of this place, its rhythms, its faces, its routines. At home, she jotted in her journal. "Today I remembered I am not alone. This house is part of a community. My community. There's life in these walls yet." Before bed, she lingered in the hallway, touching the doors of her children's rooms. For the first time in a while, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, those rooms could be filled with laughter and life again. But for now, she simply smiled, pulled the covers over her shoulders, and let the comfort of her home settle around her. By Tuesday, Virginia found herself greeting the day with unexpected energy. The conversation with her children lingered in her mind, but something about the routine of bingo night and the ordinary pleasures of her own space made her feel emboldened, not defeated. She started her morning with a brisk walk to the corner market, chatting with the clerks and picking out fresh bread and peaches. On the way home, she bumped into her neighbor's granddaughter, Jamie, who was home from college for the summer. They stopped to talk about Jamie's internship, her ambitions, and her struggles to find a quiet place to study. "Sometimes my house feels so cramped," Jamie confided. "I'd give anything for a peaceful room with a desk." Virginia's mind ticked. After Jamie left, she glanced back up at her own big, mostly empty house. Back home, she checked her email and, out of curiosity, opened a popular housing site. She browsed listings for local room rentals, surprised at how many people, students, traveling nurses, retirees between homes, were seeking clean, safe spaces. She jotted notes, comparing prices and amenities, her heart quickening at the possibilities. By midday, Virginia was scrubbing Ruth's old room, pulling the covers off the bed and flinging open the windows. The scent of lilacs drifted in, mingling with the faint perfume of childhood memories. She dusted shelves, sorted old toys, and boxed up trinkets to offer Ruth the next time she visited. She vacuumed, laundered the curtains, and set a vase of fresh daisies on the desk. Her phone rang, Phil, with another check-in. "How are you, Mom? Ruth says you've been quiet." "I've just been keeping busy," Virginia replied, glancing at the gleaming room. "Taking care of things around here." Phil hesitated, then asked about the brochures. Virginia promised she'd looked them over. "But you know I like my own space. I'm not ready for shuffleboard just yet." Phil laughed, tension easing on both ends. In the afternoon, Virginia made a pot of vegetable soup and carried a thermos over to Marjorie, who had come down with a cold. They talked over lunch, Marjorie complaining about her daughter's nagging to downsize. "I don't want to live in a matchbox," Marjorie sniffled. "This is my home." Virginia agreed, feeling their solidarity deepen. When she returned home, She sat on the porch with a notepad, drafting a list. Paint Ruth's room. List rental ad. Make sure locks and windows are secure. Gather references. Make muffins for open house. As dusk fell, Jamie knocked on the door, returning a borrowed book. Virginia invited her in, and the young woman gazed around in delight at the clean, sunlit bedroom. "This is beautiful," Jamie breathed. "Anyone would be lucky to stay here." Virginia smiled. "Would you be interested? I haven't decided for sure, but it might be nice to have some company. And I'm not planning on going anywhere for a long time." Jamie's face lit up. "I'd love that. And I can help with chores or errands. My parents would be thrilled. It's right across the street." That night, Virginia felt a lightness as she set her journal on her bedside table. "Today, I realized I have choices. My home isn't just my past, it can be someone's future, too." Sleep came easy, the house quietly alive with the possibility of change. By Thursday, Virginia's home was buzzing with small, purposeful changes. She had spent most of Wednesday painting Ruth's old room a fresh, pale green. Sunlight spilled through the windows, making the space look airy and inviting. After the paint dried, she made the bed with crisp white linens and placed a stack of fresh towels on the dresser. She even added a few new touches, a lamp from the attic, a cozy armchair from the den, and a soft rug near the window. Jamie came by in the afternoon, eager to help move a desk into the room. Together, they rearranged furniture, hung new curtains, and laughed as they tried to wedge the bookshelf through the narrow hallway. Jamie's mother stopped in with lemonade and cookies, grateful for Virginia's generosity. "It means so much to know Jamie has a safe place to stay this summer," she said. Virginia smiled, feeling both proud and deeply useful. That evening, Virginia drafted a short rental agreement with the help of a neighbor who worked in real estate. They sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea, going over details, quiet hours, shared chores, rent payment, and house rules. "Don't let anyone take advantage, Ginny," her friend advised. "You're still in charge." Virginia chuckled. "Don't worry. I haven't lost my edge." Friday morning, Jamie arrived with a suitcase, some books, and a laptop. She set up her study materials on the desk and immediately made herself at home. The house was livelier than it had been in years. Jamie played music while she unpacked, and the two of them ate lunch together. Virginia's homemade chicken salad and slices of peach pie. News spread quickly through the neighborhood. Mrs. Lee called to ask if Virginia had turned her home into a boarding house, but the tone was more curious than judgmental. By afternoon, another neighbor, Mr. Singh, stopped by to see if his nephew, a nursing student, might be able to rent Phil's old room for the semester. "He needs a quiet place close to the hospital," Mr. Singh explained. Virginia gave it some thought, then offered to show the room on Sunday. In the meantime, Ruth called again, her voice full of forced brightness. "Mom, I was hoping we could go over the brochures this weekend." "I'll be busy with a few things at home," Virginia replied, "but maybe next week." Ruth hesitated, caught off guard, then changed the subject. Virginia felt a surge of private satisfaction, not spiteful, just quietly triumphant. By Saturday, the house was busy with comings and goings. Jamie and Virginia ate breakfast together, then tackled yard work, laughing as they swept the walk and pulled weeds from the flower beds. Jamie's friend stopped by, filling the house with youthful chatter and energy. That night, Virginia wrote in her journal, "The rooms are no longer empty. The house feels alive again, filled with hope and purpose. Maybe I'm not the only one who needed a new beginning." She fell asleep to the gentle sound of laughter drifting down the hallway, comforted by the knowledge that her life and her home were far from finished. Sunday dawned bright and warm, and Virginia was up early preparing Phil's old room for its potential new tenant. She stripped the bed, dusted shelves lined with baseball trophies and old paperbacks, and vacuumed the corners. The closet still held some of Phil's high school jackets and a collection of board games, which Virginia boxed up for storage in the attic. With Jamie's help, she moved a sturdy desk near the window and added a comfortable chair, making the space as inviting as possible. Mid-morning, Mr. Singh's nephew, Arjun, arrived to tour the room. He was polite, a little shy, and clearly overwhelmed by nursing school. Virginia showed him around, pointing out the bathroom, laundry room, and her favorite shady corner in the backyard. "It's peaceful here," Arjun said softly. My dorm is so noisy, I can't think. Jamie popped her head in to say hello, quickly winning Arjun over with her easy friendliness. By the time Arjun left, Virginia was confident she'd found the right fit. While waiting for Arjun's answer, Virginia checked in with Marjorie, who wanted to hear all about her new boarding house. Over coffee and muffins, Virginia explained how good it felt to have her home filled with energy again, how the small inconveniences, shared meals, noise, adjusting to others' routines, were more than worth it. I feel needed, Virginia admitted. Not managed. Not pushed aside. Later, Arjun called to say he'd love to move in. Virginia finalized the rental details, reassured his anxious parents over the phone, and set a move-in date for the following weekend. That evening, she prepared a big pot of stew to celebrate. Jamie's friends joined, bringing rolls and salad. The kitchen overflowed with laughter, stories, and shared plans for the coming weeks. The house itself seemed to wake up, music in the afternoons, doors opening and closing, new voices drifting down the stairs. Jamie and Arjun quickly became friends, helping Virginia with groceries, walking her to the library, and inviting her to join them for movie nights. On Monday, Virginia received a letter from Ruth. Inside was a handwritten note and another brochure, this time for a place called Golden Horizons. Ruth's letter was full of worry. Mom, I just want you to be safe. Please let's talk about this soon. Love, Ruth. Virginia stared at the letter, weighing Ruth's concern against the new warmth in her home. She set the letter aside for now. That afternoon, Virginia met with her neighbor Mrs. Lee, who had brought a fresh rhubarb pie. I heard about your new tenants. You're braver than I am, Ginny. They shared stories of their own children growing up, and Virginia confessed, I needed a change. I just didn't want it forced on me. That night, she wrote in her journal. Every day, these walls hold more life and laughter. I'm not just holding on, I'm moving forward on my own terms. Sleep came quickly, comforted by the knowledge that her house, once so still, now hummed with possibility. With Arjun settled in by the next weekend, Virginia's house pulsed with the rhythm of shared living. The once quiet halls now echoed with footsteps, Jamie's hurried sprints down the stairs for early classes, Arjun's gentle humming as he brewed tea before his hospital shifts, the muffled sound of laptop keys late at night. Virginia found herself invigorated by the change. She cooked larger meals, her kitchen alive with activity as Jamie chopped vegetables or Arjun measured out rice for curry. Dinner became a shared ritual, stories exchanged over steaming plates and mugs of cocoa. Jamie often invited friends to join, filling the table with laughter and youthful debate. Arjun shared stories from the hospital, occasionally arriving home exhausted but grateful for a hot meal and a quiet room. On Thursday, Jamie hung a small sign on her door, Quiet, please, studying for finals. Virginia respected the boundaries, remembering her own college days, and left encouraging notes and snacks outside Jamie's door. Arjun, facing a tough week at the hospital, was grateful for Virginia's steady supply of coffee and quiet support. Word about Virginia's house of second chances spread. Mrs. Lee's niece called, hoping to rent a room in September. Virginia jotted her name on a waiting list, amazed at how quickly things had changed. But not everyone was enthusiastic. Ruth, growing increasingly insistent, arrived unannounced one afternoon, brochures in hand. She was taken aback by the scene, Jamie working at the dining table, Arjun reading on the porch, and Virginia laughing with them in the kitchen. Mom, what's going on? Ruth demanded, voice tight. Virginia explained, calmly and without apology, how she'd rented out the bedrooms, kept busy, and enjoyed the company. This is my choice, Ruth. I'm not alone. I'm not helpless. Ruth, flustered, struggled to understand. But what about your safety? Your future? My future is here, Virginia replied, surrounded by life. I'm still your mother, Ruth. I just want to live on my own terms. That evening, after Ruth left, still uncertain but a little more at ease, Virginia sat on the porch with Jamie and Arjun, listening to the crickets and watching the stars emerge. She felt both the ache of her children's concern and the comfort of new connections. She wrote in her journal, Change is never easy, but it's better to fill a home with hope and friendship than to let it grow silent. I am stronger than I thought. She drifted to sleep that night with a peaceful heart, the sounds of laughter and gentle conversation echoing through the walls. As summer deepened, Virginia's house blossomed into a true haven. The days began early, with Jamie bustling off to her internship and Arjun brewing fragrant chai for everyone before his hospital shifts. Virginia found herself drawn into their routines, invigorated by youthful energy and a renewed sense of purpose. Neighbors noticed. Mrs. Lee stopped by more frequently, sometimes joining for tea in the garden, marveling at the lively atmosphere. One evening, the trio hosted a small backyard barbecue. Mr. Singh brought homemade samosas, Mrs. Lee baked lemon bars, Jamie's friends played old folk songs on a guitar. Laughter, music, and good-natured arguments drifted across the fences, a far cry from the lonely silence Virginia had dreaded. Marjorie, feeling left out, asked if she could join them for their weekly movie night. "I miss the sound of a full house," she admitted. Virginia welcomed her, making popcorn and pulling extra chairs into the living room. Movie night became a tradition, with rotating themes, classics, musicals, even horror, much to Jamie's delight and Arjun's horror. Word of Virginia's new lifestyle spread beyond the neighborhood. Mrs. Lee's niece, Tessa, visited to see about the September opening and left impressed, marveling at how comfortable and vibrant the home felt. "You could fill all your rooms twice over," she joked. Virginia, delighted, considered taking on another tenant for a short-term stay. The idea of helping more young people and staying connected filled her with fresh energy. At the same time, Virginia's family continued to react. Phil, hearing about the rentals from Ruth, called one Sunday afternoon. "Are you sure about this, Mom? Isn't it a lot to take on?" Virginia assured him that, with the help and camaraderie of Jamie and Arjun, the work felt lighter, not heavier. "I have help. I have friends. I have purpose. Isn't that what you wanted for me?" Phil paused, then quietly confessed, "I just miss feeling needed too." Virginia gently suggested he visit more often, inviting him to join them for Sunday dinner. That Sunday, Phil did come. He arrived with flowers and a wary smile, surprised to see Jamie and Arjun setting the table and Marjorie laughing at the sink. He joined in, telling stories about his childhood in the house, even teaching Jamie and Arjun how to make his favorite cornbread recipe. After dinner, Phil pulled Virginia aside, his voice softer. "I worried you were alone, but you've built something wonderful here, Mom. Maybe I was wrong." Virginia squeezed his hand, a mix of gratitude and relief warming her heart. That night, as she tidied up after her guests, Virginia paused to look at the crowded table, the shoes by the door, the laughter that still lingered. "This is what I was afraid to lose. Life, family, laughter. It just looks a little different now." In her journal, she wrote, "Sometimes, holding on means letting go of old expectations. My house is full, and so is my heart." She fell asleep surrounded by the quiet reassurance of belonging, not just to her family, but to a wider circle of friends, neighbors, and new kin. The last weeks of summer brought more changes and deepened the bonds within Virginia's home. Each day began with shared routines, coffee and breakfast with Jamie and Arjun, laughter echoing down the hall as everyone prepared for the day. Virginia's kitchen was now the heart of the house, humming with music, conversations about school, work, and life's little victories. September arrived with a rush. Tessa, Mrs. Lee's niece, moved into Phil's old room just as Arjun began longer shifts at the hospital. The house filled with even more energy, a blend of youthful optimism and Virginia's steady presence. Tessa and Jamie studied at the dining table, Arjun's textbooks stacked nearby, and Virginia reveled in the company during evening meals. Virginia organized a housewarming potluck to welcome Tessa, inviting neighbors and old friends. The backyard glowed with lanterns, the picnic table loaded with homemade dishes. Marjorie brought her famous apple crisp. Phil and Ruth attended, both surprised and a little humbled by how seamlessly Virginia's new life unfolded. Ruth lingered in the kitchen, finally admitting, "I never imagined this house so full again." "You proved me wrong, Mom, and I'm glad." Virginia smiled, passing her daughter a plate. "I just needed to do things my way." Life wasn't without challenges. Sharing a home meant learning patience, sometimes biting her tongue, and occasionally insisting on quiet after midnight. But the noise and bustle made Virginia feel more alive than she had in years. She kept a list of house rules on the fridge, and everyone respected them, taking turns with chores and supporting each other through long days. The community around her shifted as well. Marjorie found herself joining more often, making new friends in the process. Mrs. Lee began teaching a knitting class at Virginia's house, filling the living room with laughter and tangled yarn every Tuesday. The house, once marked by silence and nostalgia, was now a lively hub, a haven not just for Virginia, but for a growing circle of people in need of connection. In the fall, Virginia hosted a thank you dinner for her tenants, neighbors, and family. The table groaned with food, voices blended in song and story, and for a moment Virginia stood back, watching the people she cared for most, her chosen family, come together. Jamie raised a toast, thanking Virginia for her generosity and spirit, and everyone joined in with applause. Later, when the house finally quieted, Virginia sat at her desk and opened her journal one last time for the season. They wanted to send me away, but I found a way to stay, by opening my doors wider than ever before. My home is full, my days are rich, and my heart is at peace. I am not just living, I am truly alive. She slipped into bed, the gentle sounds of her busy home all around her, and closed her eyes on a life renewed.